They thought we were weak, primitive, forgotten. But today, the sky burns with our fury. Today, humanity answers. The year is 2841. For centuries, humanity was nothing more than a whisper in the galaxy, scarred, scattered, and nearly wiped out after the siege of Earth. Alien empires rose and fell, thinking they had crushed the last of us. But they never understood one thing: humans don't die quietly. In the shadow of extinction, we rebuilt stronger, smarter, and fueled by vengeance. The siege of Earth had left our homeworld a scorched husk. What used to be blue oceans and green continents were now radioactive wastelands. Billions perished in the first wave, not from enemy fire, but from starvation, disease, and chaos. The Zarn Collective thought they had delivered the final blow. They broadcasted our defeat across the stars as a warning to other rebellious species. But in the ruins of shattered cities and broken satellites, something ancient stirred. Our will to survive hardened into something new, something dangerous. Humanity splintered. Some fled to the outer colonies, hiding beneath ice moons and within asteroid belts. Others became pirates, mercenaries, or slaves. But even in that darkness, we adapted. We learned alien tech, hacked it, twisted it, improved it. Human engineers fused Earth physics with alien power cores, creating machines no civilization had ever seen. By the late 2700s, we weren't just surviving. We were preparing. Underground bunkers in Titan's crust became military academies. Hidden shipyards within. Neptune's rings began producing stealth warships, equipped with cloaking engines and kinetic launchers that defied galactic law. Earth was gone, yes, but its children carried its memory like fire in their blood. Every child born in exile was taught about the siege, about the screams, about the silence, about vengeance. By 2805, a new alliance had formed in secret. The Terran Reclamation Corps, not a government, not a nation, a vow, led by Commander Riker, a survivor of the siege. Only 13 at the time, the TRC gathered warriors, scientists and spies from every human outpost. Their mission, to reclaim what was lost and make the galaxy pay for every drop of blood spilled. While the great alien powers bickered over trade routes and wormhole treaties, humanity grew in the shadows. We didn't broadcast our return. We waited, hidden in gravitational dead. Zones and dark systems where light itself bent around our bases. We built ships not for beauty but for terror, armor meters thick. Cannons that fired antimatter warheads. AI so advanced they dreamed in blood. Then came the first strike. The outer Zarn relay station at Delta Serpentis. A single human corvette. The Whisper infiltrated the system, disabled all comms, and destroyed the facility in under 9 minutes. No survivors, no messages, just a burning hulk drifting through space with one word carved. Into the debris, remember. The galaxy didn't understand. They thought it was an isolated incident. A rogue ship, maybe even pirates. But then the TRC hit again. And again, each time with more firepower, more precision. Alien slave camps were liberated. Human prisoners returned, their eyes filled with stories too dark to share. The message was spreading. Humanity was back and we were done running. By 2835, the first sighting of the HSS, Leviathan sent shockwaves through the galactic community. A dreadnought the size of a small moon, bristling with weapons and shielded by quantum fields. It emerged from the blackness like a myth come alive. Some said it was crewed by ghosts. Others believed it was AI run, soulless and invincible. The truth was simpler. It was human, and it was angry. Now in 2841, the galaxy watches with held breath. The Varn Dominion, once the proud rulers of 12 sectors, has lost 5 in under a year. Their fleets shattered, their governors executed. Worlds once thought impregnable now kneel under the shadow of Terran vengeance. The children of Earth have become legends, not because of what we lost, but because of what we refused to let die, our defiance. In the dark silence of space, as the Leviathan looms over Xenthar-9, one truth echoes across the stars. You can burn our world, break our bones, scatter our people, but if even one of us survives, the fire will return stronger, hotter, human. This is not just war. This is retribution. From the farthest reaches of uncharted space, where starlight bends and ancient signals go unanswered, humanity rose from silence with a force that rewrote fear. The HSS Leviathan, a colossus forged in the forgotten hellfires of Neptune's shadows, now loomed above Xenthar-9, a planet no longer known for its beauty, but for the sins buried deep beneath its surface. This was not the arrival of a fleet. This was the coming of reckoning. The Leviathan dwarfed the planet's orbital defenses. Its hull, blacker than void, shimmered with the spectral glow of void skin plating, a classified Terran material that refracted targeting signals and absorbed energy-based assaults. It wasn't cloaked because it didn't need to hide. It came in full view, slow and deliberate, exuding an aura of judgment. Below the Varn Dominion's surface, installations scrambled to identify the descending threat. But deep within their reptilian minds, they already knew. No other civilization built ships like this. No one else used dead stars to power core engines. The silhouette was unmistakable. The Leviathan had arrived, and wherever it went, death followed. In the war room, engineers and command tacticians worked in eerie synchronicity. Projections flickered across the air, energy shield status, orbital cannon alignment, gravitational distortion zones. Yet none of that mattered. For the crew aboard the Leviathan, this was more than data. It was prophecy coming to life. The vengeance of a species forged in agony. Xenthar-9 had been a fortress for nearly a century. The Varn used it as a hub for their genetic modification labs, twisting prisoners into weapons, harvesting psychic matter from enslaved telepaths, and conducting rituals forbidden even by their own council. It was here that countless human lives had been dissected, erased, and repurposed. It was here the Leviathan would deliver its verdict. With the flick of a switch, Commander Riker's voice boomed across every Terran ship. No quarter. No retreat. The crimes committed here echo across centuries. Let justice descend from the Leviathan's flanks. Support vessels emerged, the Gorgon, a stealth cruiser that moved like shadow, the Bastion, bristling with kinetic torpedoes, and the Whisper, a ship that had destroyed entire moons without leaving debris. They formed a triangular formation around Xenthar-9, boxing it in with cold, relentless finality. Planetary sensors detected changes in atmospheric pressure. The Leviathan was descending not just in orbit, but toward low atmospheric range. This was unheard of. No ship of its size dared that close without fear of retaliation. But the Leviathan welcomed retaliation. It craved it. The Varn tried to retaliate. Missile silos fired, and defense batteries lit up the skies. But it was like striking a mountain with sticks. The Leviathan's shields held firm. Energy beams fizzled against its surface. Interceptors were swatted from the air by automated anti-air batteries, hidden within its hull. It wasn't a battle. It was an execution, and still it came closer. Within the hangar bays, the Ares units stirred massive war machines, piloted by human minds fused with quantum AI, their limbs locked into place with bone-shaking thuds, weapon systems igniting like waking beasts. Drop pods hissed and sealed, Marines strapped in, weapons loaded with precision born of endless drills and righteous fury. The Leviathan paused only once, to scan the planet one final time. Not for strategic reasons, but out of ritual. A ritual of mourning for those lost. A ritual of rage for those who would be avenged. Then came the command. All units, launch. Thousands of pods launched in synchronized fire. The sky above Xenthar-9 tore open. Not from storm or quake, but from vengeance in free fall. The Leviathan watched from above, as if overseeing judgment, and its cannons began to glow. It fired. The beam cut through the clouds like a divine sword. A Varn citadel turned to dust in a second. Fortress walls melted. Communication arrays shattered. The screams from the surface reached the heavens. And through it all, Riker stood still, and the galaxy trembled. The Leviathan wasn't just a ship, it was a symbol. It embodied every atrocity, every injustice, every scream that had gone unanswered since the fall of Earth. Built deep within the ice, caverns of Triton, she had taken over 70 years to complete. Her armor was layered with neutronium and compressed graphene, tested against singularity torpedoes and dark matter bursts. No other known vessel in the galaxy could match her firepower. She was in every sense a walking apocalypse in orbit. Below her, Xenthar-9 waited like a wounded animal. Once a glittering jewel in the Varn Dominion's territory, the planet had been transformed into a fortress world after repeated human attacks in nearby systems. Anti-orbital batteries lined the cliffs. Interceptor swarms buzzed like angry hornets across the stratosphere, yet none dared fire first. The Leviathan's presence alone was a threat too massive to provoke lightly. Inside the warship, thousands of personnel stood ready. Strike Marines loaded kinetic blades and impact rifles. Drone operators reviewed tactical holograms of the planetary surface. Command AI ran simulations every microsecond, adjusting invasion routes based on the wind patterns, underground heat signatures, and tectonic tremors. Everything was calculated. Everything was ready. Commander Riker stood at the bridge's central platform, watching the planet rotate slowly beneath them. His old scar, a relic from a Varn plasma whip, ached slightly under his uniform. He welcomed the pain. It reminded him why they were here. "Deploy recon drones," he said, voice calm and steady. "And wake the Ares units. We're going in." Across the ship, steel chambers opened with hisses of vapor. The Ares units, human-piloted exomechs equipped with gravhammer arms and plasma net casters, stepped forward like ancient titans reborn. Each pilot, connected through neural links, had been trained in simulated battles against Varn warlords, based on real intel. Now they would face them for real. Meanwhile, in the orbit above, the rest of the Terran fleet arrived in staggered jumps. Smaller destroyers and heavy cruisers flanked the Leviathan, forming a crescent of metal around Xenthar-9. From afar, it looked less like a military formation and more like an execution squad. The Varn Orbital Control Center scrambled to respond, broadcasting surrender offers and ceasefire conditions. But Riker wasn't listening. "Let them beg," he said, eyes locked on the surface. "They didn't beg when they crushed Earth. They didn't beg when they took our children. We don't want their mercy. We want their extinction." The order came. All wings. Commence descent. Engines roared. Drop pods shot out like thunderbolts. The night sky above Xenthar-9 lit up with streaks of flame. The ground forces below finally opened fire, but it was too late. The Terran Reclamation Corps had arrived, and the Leviathan, like a god descending, prepared to speak in the only language the galaxy understood: fire. From the dark edge of the galaxy, where star systems vanish into myth and light itself forgets how to travel, a new shape emerged. It did not glide. It did not announce itself with diplomacy or flashing beacons. It loomed like a god of ancient fury returning to a battlefield that never forgot its name. The HSS Leviathan, a Terran dreadnought of impossible scale, now hovered above Xenthar-9. Once a crown jewel of the Varn Dominion, now a funeral pyre waiting for a match. Its hull shimmered with adaptive quantum plating, pulsing in eerie waves, not to deflect attention but to terrify it. Every inch of the Leviathan's design screamed vengeance. It was not sleek. It was not beautiful. It was purpose-built horror made manifest. Forged in silence after Earth's fall, designed by hands that remembered what it meant to lose everything. The Varn saw it and hesitated. That hesitation would cost them everything. No hail, no greeting, no negotiation, because this was not diplomacy. This was a verdict. Below, Xenthar-9 sprawled like a defiant, wound its jagged terrain crawling, with fortresses, launch towers, drone nests, and genetically modified war beasts coiled in slumber. The Dominion had spent decades turning it into a bulwark. Impenetrable, they believed. Infallible, entire, planetary. Crusts had been mined to fund its planetary shields and orbital artillery. The Varn called it the spine of conquest, a final line in the galactic sand. But humanity didn't care about lines. We remembered what they did, and now the storm had arrived. The Leviathan's bridge was quiet. Not the silence of fear, but the kind that comes before thunder. Commander Riker stood unmoving at the helm. Around him, holographic interfaces floated like Firefly's shield status. Tactical displays, orbital heat maps. But his eyes weren't on the screens. They were on the planet. He had watched it from reconnaissance feeds for weeks. Every trench, every cannon, every slave mine. He had memorized it not as a general, but as a gravekeeper preparing a eulogy. The last time humanity had seen Xenthar-9, it was in screams. He planned to end it in silence. "Bridge to all decks," Riker said, voice steady, like a prayer with a gun. "Prepare for full burn. No stealth. Let them see the Leviathan coming. Let them feel it in their bones." The words echoed through the ship like scripture. Within seconds, lights dimmed across corridors. Combat protocols initiated. Ion batteries began their slow, searing charge. Nullification fields hummed to life. Deep in the warbays, Titan-class mechs stirred, blinking awake like sleeping gods made of steel and wrath. Outside, the Leviathan tilted forward slightly, deliberately revealing its planetary facing. Weapon array, the Gravedigger cannons, Oblivion lances, EMP stormcasters, and the rumored chrono-lock payload. Still untested and outlawed by every interstellar treaty ever signed. None of that mattered. Treaties are written by survivors. and the Varn had stopped letting humans survive a long time ago. From Varn High Command, the panic had already begun. "This is not a tactical vessel," one officer stammered, staring at the Leviathan's silhouette, blotting out a portion of the upper stratosphere. "This is a siege platform. Why is it here? There's no Terran fleet registered in this sector." A general hissed, clawed fingers trembling over the control console. "Find its escort fleet. Trace the warp signature. It must have jumped here alone. It's impossible." But no escort came. The Leviathan was the fleet, and it had come alone on purpose. Down in the bunkers, Varn soldiers scrambled. Bioshields activated. Skyflak artillery swiveled into position. Atmospheric dreadwings launched from silos in jagged squadrons. The planet was responding like a hornet nest kicked by a god. But in the stars above, the Leviathan simply watched, judging, waiting, and then it began. Not with fire, not with bombs, with a signal. 3 words transmitted on all Varn frequencies, carved into the code of every drone, displayed across every holographic feed, even etched, somehow, into the lens of their orbital satellites. "We are back." Then came the descent. The Leviathan shifted, angling slightly downward. A whir built across the hull. Cannons opened. Missile ports slid apart. Engines once quiet howled like ancestral ghosts. And the sky ignited. Drop pods deployed first dozens, then hundreds, falling in formation like metal tears. Each one carrying elite Reclamation Marines, their armor imprinted with the names of cities that no longer existed. Sydney, Cairo, Karachi, New York, homeworlds. Reduced to ash, and now they were the ash falling back. The Varn fired everything they had. Anti-air screamed. Plasma beams lanced the heavens. Missiles tore upward like desperate claws, but the Leviathan deployed the shield halo, a planetary-scale energy field that refracted not just blasts, but reality itself. Projectiles bent mid-air. Missiles blinked out of existence. The Varn watched their finest weapons unravel before touching Terran metal. Inside the command chamber, Riker whispered the phrase every soul aboard had memorized. "Execute judgment," and the Leviathan opened fire. The Oblivion Lances carved mountain fortresses into molten rivers. The EMP Stormcasters disabled entire sectors with pulses that crushed neural link tech and shorted enemy AI mid-command. The Gravedigger cannons massive. Triple-barreled seismic weapons fired in arcs so thunderous, they created their own weather systems. The planet screamed, and the Leviathan kept coming. As the first reclamation squads breached the Varn bunkers, this is not an invasion. This is not rebellion. This is remembrance delivered in fire. And above them, the Leviathan drifted. A silent judge, a living weapon, a promise finally kept. Commander Riker stood at the apex of the Leviathan's command bridge, surrounded by sweeping panoramic glass and rotating holographic displays. Outside, the dying light of Xenthar-9's twin moons cast an eerie glow across the hull, while storm clouds brewed below like a cosmic omen. The ship's interior hummed with restrained power reactors ready, targeting systems alive, drop bays sealed like clenched fists. Every soul aboard could feel it, the tension before impact, the silence before a scream. "Full descent mode," Riker said, his voice low but cutting through the tension like a blade. "Weapons primed. Let them see us coming." The words didn't just command action, they carried history. Riker wasn't just a commander. He was a symbol of humanity's transformation. A boy when Earth burned, a soldier forged in exile, and now a legend returned to claim what was stolen. His voice bore the weight of shattered worlds and silenced bloodlines. Every crew member moved with mechanical grace, responding not just out of duty but shared vengeance. The bridge came alive, shields flared, propulsion fields aligned. Targeting sensors danced like fireflies. Below them, Xenthar-9's skies darkened, not from weather, but from the shadow of judgment. The planet's defenses began to glow in anticipation, scanning, tracking, adjusting for trajectory. The Varn command knew what was coming, but it didn't matter. That was the point. And with a shudder that echoed through space, the Leviathan's underbelly split apart. Hundreds of drop pods lined the interior, each one like a bullet in a divine revolver. Red lights strobed across their surfaces. Pilots buckled in, soldiers braced, heart monitors synced, neural uplinks locked. One final command echoed through every comm line. "Make them remember why they feared us." With the roar of vengeance, the pods launched, ripping through cloud layers like falling meteors. They didn't fall alone. Accompanying them were drone clusters, stealth interceptors, and atmospheric artillery shells guided by AI. From the bridge, Riker watched the planet catch fire. The first pods made contact. Explosions rippled through enemy lines. Mechs burst forth from impact craters like titans reborn. Sky combat erupted in glorious chaos. Laser tracers arced across the horizon. But this wasn't a battle. It was a declaration. And Riker, watching it all, tightened his grip on the rail. "This isn't vengeance," he whispered, almost to himself. "This is justice overdue." Behind him, the Earthborn banner was projected, an old Terran flag, tattered, flickering, hovering above the command deck like a ghost returned from the grave. The Varn had enslaved entire human colonies, arrogantly convinced of their superiority. To them, humanity was little more than cosmic debris, primitive, chaotic, emotionally erratic. In their eyes, we were insects who'd stumbled into space and dared to build cities among the stars. They believed their enhancements biofused nervous systems, triple redundant thought chambers. Organic weapon grafts made them untouchable. Their empire spanned 6 spiral arms, boasting hundreds of subjugated worlds and fleets that had raised civilizations older than Earth's pyramids. But the Varn made one mistake. They didn't kill us all. They let some of us live. And humanity, when cornered, doesn't beg. It becomes something else. We evolved not just biologically, but psychologically. Every child born after the siege of Earth carried memory implants. Every adult trained with survival as religion. We didn't just fight to win, we fought to become the kind of species that never lost again. We weren't polished or graceful. We were fire in human form. Scarred, spliced, weaponized. In labs buried deep beneath Martian dust and Europa's frozen seas, we rewrote the rules of physics just to survive another day. The Varn believed war was an art. We made it an apocalypse. In the early years of the Resistance, we scavenged. We wore armor stitched together from fallen enemies. We modified Varn tech in illegal, unstable ways that horrified even our own scientists. We fused neural AI with raw emotion, something no other species had dared. We taught machines to feel rage, to remember pain, to grow loyal to the fallen, and they grew loyal. The result? Warships like the HSS Leviathan, carrying artificial suns in their cores, sun forges, so hot they could vaporize asteroids in seconds. Ships that bent space without needing wormholes. Ships that roared through the void with engines powered by quantum grief generators, built from the psychic remains of Earth's martyrs. Each railgun aboard the Leviathan wasn't just a weapon, it was a tombstone with velocity. These weapons didn't fire to kill, they fired to erase. Moons, fortresses, memories, all of it gone in one blinding scream of light and sound. The Varn never understood how we turned grief into propulsion, how we used heartbreak as programming code. They still fought with logic, with predictable formations, with tactics taught in ancient academies. But humans, we learned to fight dirty. We learned to corrupt their AI with viral songs that embedded in communication frequencies, tunes made from Earth's final broadcasts, distorted into madness. We built invisible bombs not made of matter, but of absence, which erased everything they touched from space-time. We deployed decoy soldiers, clones with unstable DNA that melted into acid when captured, dissolving entire enemy squads. The Varn thought they were dominant, but slowly their skies began to darken. A whisper spread across their empire of ships with no signatures, of human ghosts returning with blood in their eyes. Entire garrisons vanished overnight. Planetary governors were found impaled by flags bearing Terran sigils. It wasn't war anymore. It was a reckoning. For decades, humanity had prepared in the shadows training, assassins on the orbital cliffs of Pluto, perfecting exomechs built from star core alloy, teaching children to interface with combat drones before they could read. Our colonies hid inside dead stars. Our fleets emerged from black holes. We sacrificed the comfort of peace for one singular truth. The next time they saw us, they would kneel. And now, as the Leviathan hovered above Xenthar-9, all those decades screamed forward in a single moment. The Varn scanners went blind. Their defense satellites twisted mid-orbit and pointed inward, hacked by sentient code disguised as human tears. Their gods did not answer, because their gods were dead. We killed them too. On the surface of Xenthar-9, Varn warriors scrambled into formation. Their war beasts howled under psychic commands. Planetary shields rose. Anti-air platforms swiveled toward the black shadow above. But deep in their dual hearts, the Varn soldiers felt it. Fear. A new kind of fear, because this wasn't just another rebellion. This was the return of the forgotten enemy, the one they mocked. Underestimated, enslaved. Humanity had been forged in extinction. Now we wielded that extinction like a blade. Commander Riker, watching it all from the Leviathan's bridge, allowed himself a moment of stillness. Not satisfaction, there was none left. Only cold purpose. The Varn taught us how to suffer, he said quietly. Now we teach them what we became because of it. The crew around him said nothing. They didn't need to. They were survivors, not speakers. Outside, the first wave of human drop pods fell. Like meteors. Like judgment. As the Leviathan descended through Xenthar-9's upper atmosphere, its obsidian hull shimmered with the heat of re-entry. But beneath the fire and cloud, glowing red lines traced along the ship's frame battle scars, not damage. These were old wounds from battles that existed only in whispers. From the siege of the Epsilon Graves, the fall of Elar Prime, the last stand at Vega Gate. Each scar was a story, carved into the steel skin of a war machine that had never stopped fighting. A ship that had seen entire civilizations burn and had vowed that Earth would not be one of them. The Varn below saw only a silhouette in the sky, a monstrous shadow blotting out their stars. Their scanners were useless, blinded by quantum distortion fields. Their targeting systems flickered with ghost signals and false readings. Some claimed it was a trick. Others thought it was a myth come to life. Few understood what they were truly facing, and none were ready for what came next. Inside the Leviathan's drop bays, silence reigned. Rows upon rows of drop pods, massive titanium cylinders stood in locked formation. Each one was a coffin of controlled fury. Red strobe lights pulsed above them like a heartbeat. Steam hissed from hydraulic clamps. Final checks completed. One by one, green lights blinked alive along the walls. Inside each pod, a soldier. But these weren't ordinary humans. They were Revenant's elite Terran reclamation troopers, bred and built for total warfare. Some were born from DNA salvaged from mass graves. Others were survivors of Varn experimentation, reforged into unbreakable warriors. All of them had one thing in common. They had nothing left to lose. Their armor wasn't polished. It was scarred, brutal, personal. Painted with kill counts, names of lost colonies. Faded photographs etched into breastplates. Helmets were shaped like skulls, visors pulsing red. Every trooper carried custom-forged weapons rail blades, plasma spears, arc rifles that hummed like electric thunder. Their gear had no manufacturers, no serial numbers. It wasn't made to be prit. It was made to end lives. One Revenant, Unit 13X, whispered a prayer inside his pod, not to a god, but to the planet he was about to destroy. For Titan's Hollow. For my sister. For humanity. The pod locked. Hydraulic clamps hissed. Launch sequence initiated. From the command bridge, Commander Riker watched the launch pattern unfold across the holomap. He didn't smile. He didn't blink. Just leaned forward and spoke, with the voice of a man whose soul had been tempered in silence. "Release the storm." And the storm answered. The drop bays opened like iron jaws. The Leviathan roared. Then impact. Thousands of pods ignited their descent engines and launched at once, streaking through the sky like flaming daggers. The upper atmosphere glowed as friction ignited around them. Sonic booms shattered the clouds. The world below looked up and saw hell falling. On the ground, the Varn defense forces scrambled. Orders were shouted. Anti-air systems locked on. Plasma lances fired into the sky, desperate to intercept the falling steel. But the pods had countermeasures the Varn had never seen. Anti-PSI coatings, cloak-piercing flares, vector-diverting shields. Most pods dodged. Some didn't, but it didn't matter. Because enough of them hit, and where they landed, they didn't stop. Pods struck the ground like meteor impacts, kicking up plumes of molten dirt and shattered armor. And then, with a thunderclap of compressed hydraulics, they opened. Revenants emerged, and they brought ruin. "Initiate drop sequence," Riker commanded, his voice calm. Final like a war drum that didn't need to be loud to be heard. Across the Leviathan, the order echoed down through subdecks into the launch bays, and into the cores of 1,000 sealed drop pods. Within milliseconds, hatches clamped. Hydraulic arms pulled back, and locking mechanisms disengaged. Then came the thuds deep, bone-vibrating echoes that sounded like the heartbeats of gods waking up from slumber. Pod after pod was hurled from the Leviathan's underbelly, each one igniting with a burst of thruster fire as it punched through cloud and gravity. In the skies above Xenthar-9, a rain of fire descended. To the Varn, it looked like the heavens had cracked open. From the ground, they appeared as falling stars, beautiful, haunting, and utterly fatal. The sky burned orange. Trails of heat shimmered through the upper atmosphere. Anti-air batteries rotated, targeting systems scrambling to predict the swarm's trajectory. But the Revenant pods moved too fast, too erratic, too many. The first wave hit, and the battlefield ignited. The pods slammed into the terrain with catastrophic force, carving craters into outposts, rupturing Varn bunkers, crushing anything foolish enough to be standing beneath them. Then, with mechanical precision, they opened not gently, but like blades unsheathing themselves from the heart of the earth. Revenants emerged. Not running, marching. They were shadows forged in fire, moving with ruthless coordination. No yelling, no wasted movement. They fanned out across the impact. Zones and formations drilled into them by years of neural combat simulations. Their helmets shimmered under the glow of plasma bursts. Their rifles already hot and their targeting HUDs pulsing red. Varn forces scrambled, trying to regroup. But this wasn't war as they knew it. It wasn't chaos. It was a calculated purge. Each squad had a mission. Each trooper had a target. There were no gaps, no hesitation. Precision kills. Point-blank executions. Movement only when necessary. Like a synchronized orchestra of annihilation. A Revenant team, Strike Echo 9, burst through the crumbling walls of a command bunker. Their railguns tore through Varn armored suits like paper. One soldier, ID, Reaper 17, fired a burst round that punched straight through two enemies and embedded itself in a third only for the slug to explode. Seconds later, in a localized gravity detonation, folding metal and flesh into a singularity the size of a coin. Sector Delta cleared, came the squad's transmission. Moving to thermal anomaly grid. No emotion, just mission flow. Another pod opened atop a Varn anti-air platform. Two Revenants spilled out and leapt into melee. Blades carved from neutron-forged, alloy humming with kinetic energy. They moved like reapers in a storm, cutting down defenders with grace that bordered on beautiful. Screams filled the air, but they weren't human. Because the humans weren't screaming, they were delivering sentence. Back on the Leviathan's bridge, Riker watched the real-time data unfold. Each impact site blinked green as objectives were completed. Resistance dropped off grid. Varn communication towers went dark one by one. Their command structure was collapsing in minutes, not hours. Begin Phase 2, he ordered. Release the Valkyrie shells. From above, massive capsules the size of freight trains, launched from the Leviathan's midsection. These weren't drop pods. They were terraforming torpedoes designed to destabilize the very ground the Varn was standing on. As they struck, they shattered tectonic plates beneath hidden Varn tunnels, creating sinkholes and magma eruptions that swallowed entire enemy reserves. From orbit, it looked like the planet was bleeding fire. On the ground, alien commanders screamed into comms that no longer functioned, and still the Revenants pushed forward. Every shot fired, every movement made, every life taken, it was all part of the reckoning. A reckoning written in fire. A reckoning that didn't stop until the planet itself begged for silence. The Varn resistance fought back, but it was already too late. Their weapons, so lethal against lesser foes, simply bounced off the Leviathan's adaptive shields, like raindrops tapping against a storm bunker. Plasma bolts fizzled on contact. Rail slugs flattened into harmless sparks. Even their experimental graviton cannons, once feared across 3 systems, couldn't penetrate the ship's defensive halo. For every shot fired, 5 Revenants advanced. The Varn had prepared for a skirmish, a messy, desperate engagement they could crush with overwhelming firepower. But this wasn't a skirmish. This was retribution. From orbit, the Leviathan's hangar bays opened, once more this time to unleash the Atlas-class combat mechs. Towering machines of war, each powered by a quantum singularity core, descended on retro burners like titanic war gods. Their metal feet crushed enemy vehicles like insects. Their arms were equipped with plasma chain blades, high-frequency rail axes, and Mechs-strike cannons that could level an outpost in a single salvo. The ground trembled with every step. Mechs didn't walk around Varn defenses, they walked through them. One Atlas unit, callsign Helldiver 07, slammed its fist through a Varn fortress dome, pulled the shield generator out like ripping a heart from a chest, and crushed it in its grip. Another, Titan Fang, charged into a bunker trench with both blades spinning, slicing through sentry turrets and biotech warbeasts like they were weeds. Inside their cockpits, the human pilots were calm. Some smiled. These were not just battle suits. They were coffins on legs, walking eulogies for every colony the Varn had burned. And every Varn death? It wasn't just a tactical win. It was justice. Across the field, Varn infantry began to falter. Their formation broke. Communications collapsed. Command nodes were offline or buried beneath rubble. Desperate officers attempted retreat but found the escape. Corridors already sealed. The humans weren't just winning. They were reclaiming. Each step taken across the ash-soaked surface of Xenthar-9 was a reclaiming of dignity, a step away from slavery, a step toward retribution, toward vengeance paid in full. Human banners black with silver stars were planted in the ruins of Varn watchtowers. Each flag held the name of a fallen Terran city: Manila, Lagos, Tehran, Anchorage. This wasn't war anymore. It was a memory that fought back. In the void above Xenthar-9, the stars seemed to blink, then vanish. One by one, they were swallowed not by night, but by the arrival of more Terran warships: the Revenant, the Sovereign, the Widowmaker. Each one emerged from hyperspace like a nightmare given metal form. Not sleek like Varn vessels, but heavy. Brutal silhouettes shaped for endurance, not elegance. Their hulls bore the scars of lost systems and dead comrades. Each ship had a name, a soul, and a purpose. And none of those purposes included mercy. The Revenant, a stealth assault cruiser, shimmered like a wound in reality. Its hull was laced with phase-masking tech developed from Forbidden. Varn biotech reverse-engineered in the dark decades after Earth's fall. It didn't arrive to fight in open space. It came to sow terror, slipping past scanners and releasing infiltration pods into high-security enemy bunkers. Where the Revenant passed, command centers died screaming. The Sovereign, by contrast, was massive, a mobile fortress in orbit, shielded with 3 overlapping grav fields and armed with the Aegis array. A weapon so powerful its blueprints had been deleted from all official records. It had leveled asteroid cities, melted oceans. It was the sledgehammer to the Revenant's scalpel. As it locked into firing position, its plasma spires glowed with apocalyptic energy. Then came the Widowmaker. The ship itself was rumored to be haunted, the only surviving vessel from the Battle of Sirius Gate. Its crew were all survivors of Varn slave camps. They never spoke. They didn't need to. The ship had no official crew roster. Its kill logs were redacted even within Terran High Command. But those who saw it in combat spoke of laser webs that stitched ships apart, gravity bombs that folded capital cruisers like paper, and most terrifying of all, neural disruption fields that made enemy soldiers kill each other in madness. As the trio took position above the burning planet, Riker stood alone on the Leviathan's observation deck. Below, Xenthar-9 was dying. The skies burned orange. Cities cracked. The crust of the world was giving way beneath the coordinated bombardment. Varn strongholds were falling in coordinated waves. The planet had become a graveyard in slow motion. Riker didn't gloat. He didn't celebrate. He just watched. And finally, with his hands clasped behind his back, he said quietly to no one and to everyone, "This is what happens when you push a species too far." The deck was silent, the fleet waiting, the planet screaming, and still the reckoning continued. By sunset, the skies above Xenthar-9 had finally gone silent. No more firestorms, no more screaming engines, no more panicked Varn transmissions begging for reinforcements that would never come. The clouds hung low and heavy, tinted orange from the burning remnants of cities below. The air was thick with smoke, ash, and something older judgment. The Varn cities, once proud monuments of alien supremacy, now lay in broken heaps of stone and glass. Towering spires had crumbled. Courtyards turned to craters. Their temples, built to glorify the conquest of lesser species, were reduced to piles of slag and melted steel. And in their place a new symbol rose. The phoenix of earth, black and silver, wings outstretched, rising from flame fluttered in the smog-choked wind, burned into banners, painted onto the hulls of Terran walkers, projected holographically above shattered capitals. A silent proclamation to the galaxy: humanity had not died. We had endured, and in the fire of extinction we had become something new. It wasn't conquest. It was resurrection. This wasn't the return of a fallen race. It was the ascension of one forged in collapse. Humanity no longer sought approval or alliance. They didn't ask for peace. They became peace's price. And as the last Varn signal went dark, and the Leviathan prepared to depart, one thing became clear to every corner of the galaxy watching: you can kill a world, but you can't kill the will to reclaim it. And in the stillness after victory, when the flames began to die, and the last echoes of battle. Faded into ash, a single message was broadcast across every frequency in the galaxy. We remember every scar, every slave camp, every child taken. We are the children of Earth, and we are not done yet. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. From the Leviathan's comms tower, the signal pulsed outward like a heartbeat piercing through deep space, bouncing off listening posts, worming its way into enemy networks, pirate broadcasts, and neutral zones alike. No corner of the galaxy would be spared the sound of humanity's voice. In orbit, the Leviathan began to turn, slow, deliberate, like a predator shifting its gaze to the next scent of blood. Its engines flared with the light of a captured star, and once again it vanished into the void. But this time, the galaxy didn't celebrate the silence it left behind. This time it feared it, because Earth was no longer lost. It was awake, and every empire, every conqueror, every species that once laughed at its fall would never sleep easy again. Like, share, subscribe, and remember, never underestimate humanity.